Tara, what the hell are you doing? Are you being unfaithful to Prog? Are you going psychedelic on me?
No, Dad. I'm just thinking about the 9 virtues of Prog and contemplating them.
Hello everybody, welcome to our latest video. It's about the 9 virtues of Prog. Okay, so this is up as a result of our last video, which was the second 6 of Prog, where we got a lot of questions from people saying, is this Prog or is that Prog and everything like that. So we decided to sit down and work out what Prog actually was. And my God, did we go down the rabbit hole. Okay, so we came to the conclusion that Prog is actually spectral, that if you were to define something as Prog, you end up excluding loads and loads of stuff, and we want to be exclusive. So what we've identified as the features of Prog, we've defined as virtues, because they're all good. Okay, so I'm starting this video because Tara started the last one, and I have to kind of try and keep her in line, you know. No, actually I'm starting so that she can have the big finish at the end of it. So, and if you don't mind, we've got to refer to notes with the 9 virtues written on them at this point. Okay, so the first virtue of a piece of Prog is that it must have artistic intent. So it must be intended to be a piece of art from its inception, and that will include the cover art as well as the album. So my pick to demonstrate this artistic intent is John Anderson's Elias of Sunhillow. Okay, so everything about this album states artistic intent. He's had some great artwork carried out here by Dave Rowe. The art direction is by Hypnosis, which is fantastic, and there's going to be more on them to come on the channel. Little spoiler. Inside we've got fantastic illustrations, all telling us the story that runs through all the music in this story that we have as part of the album. It turns over again, and we've got more fantastic illustrations, more of the stories. We've got a lovely inner sleeve bit here, which has all the lyrics on it and everything. Everything is crammed with art. Even the texture of this record feels like it was intended to be something to bring across some sort of an artistic, a piece of art that you can bring home and actually own and engage with in your own house, which I think kind of started around the mid-60s as something that the LP record became, and was wholly embraced by the Prog community. Okay, yeah. So Tara, what's your...
So for this one I chose The Who, Tommy. Now I know it's a bit of a dark theme, but it's just beautiful. So we have our inside, big piece of art here, the cover of course, and the back, which go together. And yeah, I mean, where do I start with this one? It's just, you have to sit down and experience it in one. So Tommy was written as a rock opera, and it goes through some really, really, really dark story, like I've said before, but it's also beautiful in a way. It's a huge experience, really. You have to kind of take it all in. You have to focus. And I think as well with this one, it's nice to kind of be able to hold and look at while you're listening to it, which is a very, very big thing in Prog and vinyl. So yeah, that was my number 1 pick.
Okay, yeah, so 2 choices there. So we've got Elias of Sunhillow, we've got Tommy, both of which tell a coherent story the whole way through them as well. So they're intended as a piece of art for somebody to bring home and use, okay, and engage with. So our second virtue of Prog is that it must use the LP record as a medium. So it must be something that is to be done on an LP It's not it's not, you know, some sort of a single, a hit single that these people are going for, or any sort of collection of hit singles. So I think the ultimate example of that would be Thick as a Brick. So I don't think you can get more LP, how can I put it, LP centric than to do a piece of music that is just one piece of music that lasts for the whole LP. Okay, so Thick as a Brick is my example of it being a piece that uses the LP record as the full medium. Okay.
So for my pick, I chose Pink Floyd's Atom Heart Mother. Now you could nearly choose any of their early albums for this one, but I picked this one out because I feel like this is one that you have to sit down and listen to as well, and it's only something that you could do on a record. I know Hypnosis said that they put the cow on the cover just so people would go, what does Pink Floyd have to do with the cow, and what does this have to do with the music, which makes it even more fun, you know? Yeah. And yeah, I mean, like, there's just a random field on the inside with cows and stuff, but when you listen to the record then, and you hear it all, like Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast and everything, it's just like, what's going on? So it does really fit with it when you think about it. And it's just, it was recorded in a way where they intended you to sit down and listen to this in one go. And I think it's a great example of number 2.
Okay. So we'll go on to number 3. It must seek to create something new and be a progression from existing music. So one band that kind of jumped into my mind with this was The Nice. So I've got their Five Bridges album here, which is actually a live album recorded in Croydon. And what there is on this album is a lot of classical structure put into rock music for one of the first times that something like this has ever been heard. Then there's jazz noodling, and there's kind of pop rock sensibilities and everything. You could argue that it doesn't quite come together, which I think makes it a good example to show how they're actually trying to make something new out of existing components that they're trying to rearrange in a different way, which is part of what innovation is all about. So yeah, hats off. The Nice, Five Bridges, that's my example of that.
And my one is a band I brought up in the last video, but I have to bring them up again, the Moody Blues. And for this example I picked On the Threshold of a Dream, because compared to the albums that came before it, it does build, and they're kind of exploring that ability to tell a story and to use all sorts of different techniques and musicality in it. I especially love the art in this one and the fabulous picture of them in the inside. The way that this kind of bookends itself as well is just amazing. I love how they bring in poetry and any instrument you could imagine nearly into this, and it's such an improvement upon improvement upon improvement experience to listen to their discography.
Yes, definitely, yeah. So they did come out with something kind of new, it could be argued. Okay, so the next one after that is it must avoid standardized song formats of verses and choruses. And for that I'm going to use the example of Gentle Giant. Sorry, I'll open this album cover so it doesn't look that bad. Just, you know, I mean, I could have picked any of these guys' albums. That the kind of construction of the songs is way beyond, your standard kind of verse and chorus type thing. So, Gentle Giant, an example there.
And as you watch our videos, you're going to learn very quickly how big a fan I am of this band, because I've brought them up now in the last 2 videos, and here I go again. But Van der Graaf Generator, and I had to pull Pawn Hearts out for this one because where's the structure? Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely mad, but it works and it's just fabulous. And if you're a dark loving person like myself, you will love this. And I just think it's the perfect example for this point.
Yeah, okay, so our next musical virtue is that it must bring in influences beyond simple blues formats, stretching into jazz, European classical and folk traditions. So yeah, that's number 5. So on that, for an example of that, I'm going to use focus, and I've got focus 3 here because my God, that stretches into every one of them. So as you listen to this album, you could be back listening to some piece of music by Bach 1 minute, and then it's gone into a full-blown jazz fusion jam, and then it goes into some quiet acoustic pastoral piece, like with lutes and all sorts of things. So yes, I'm going to use focus, and my example here is focus 3. Great double album, fabulous album. Yeah, thank you.
My one for this is the Mahavishnu Orchestra, who they incorporate all of these styles of music. I could have pulled out any of their albums for this really, because all of them have just any kind of theme, any kind of genre you could think of incorporated into the prog rock. They're just a great example of fusion of any kind really. So yeah.
Yep, okay. So our musical virtue number 6 is it must seek to use high levels of musicianship. I think we could have said that about the Mahavishnu Orchestra as well. But but my example for this is going to be King Crimson, and I've got Lark's Tongues in Aspic here. You know, like Tara with Van der Graaf Generator, I've got to have Crimson extension. So yeah, fantastic musicianship on this album. Robert Fripp, of course, his usual self. I mean, it's got Fracture on it. What more can you say? Bill Bruford, Jamie Muir, John Wetton on the bass. I mean, I can't say anything. It's just the quality of musicianship here goes beyond anything that I had heard prior to it. So yeah, Lark's Tongues in Aspic.
And for me, I chose Tarkus by ELP. Again, you could have pulled out any of the early albums for this. Carl Palmer is probably one of the greatest drummers I've ever heard. Keith Emerson, I can't even think of someone I'd put over him. I think he's absolutely amazing. And not even his musicianship, but his showmanship as well at their concerts was just unreal. And of course Greg Lake, his voice gives me goosebumps every time I hear him. So I think the 3 of these guys are such a great example of high musicianship, and I'm so glad that they exist.
Okay, brilliant, yeah. Okay, so our next one, which is number 7 in our musical virtues, or our musical virtues of Prog, it can employ innovation in the use of instruments and studio techniques. So I think a lot of the way through Prog we've seen them employ instrumentation and things, you know, like the mellotron, Moog synthesizers, all sorts of different percussion and different instruments from around the world. But they also use studio techniques, so they kind of brought recording an album up to a certain level as well. And I think Dark Side of the Moon kind of has a lot of everything in that. It has musicianship where they're using very early VCS3 synthesizers, which they're programming into sequencers, etc. They're using like studio techniques, great studio time. You know, of course, the great Alan Parsons was there to engineer it at Abbey Road Studios. We were outside Abbey Road this year, only a few months ago, actually.
I'll insert a picture.
So yeah. So Dark Side of the Moon.
And for me, I was thinking about this one, and I think as we move into the future and technology gets better and better, I just feel like that's not reflected in music nowadays. So it's nice to be able to go back and hear this proper use of effects. So I pulled out Relayer by Yes, especially the Gates of Delirium. You know, they used everything. It sounds like a battle, an actual war going on in the music, and I couldn't. The first thing that came to mind when I heard this point was Relayer. You have Sound Chaser as well, the way they incorporated like them what would you call it, harmonising like African singers and everything. It was just absolutely fabulous, and yeah, I think it really is one of a kind.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So then the next one we're going to do together, which is number 8 in our musical virtues of Prog. So the band or musicians must use each album as a building block as they progress to greater levels of musical and lyrical expression on each album. Okay, so again we've gone back. She's very, very, what would you call it? Kind of futuristic or prescient with picking Relay, because we're going to look at, yes, just kind of briefly. So we start at the first album, very of its time, 60s. A lot of cover versions. You can hear that these are things that the lads are using live, etc. Some little sounds as to what was to come. Sounds like Survival, where we've got a kind of larger idea on that. And then we move on to Time in a Word. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Time in a Word, they started to bring in the orchestra and everything for this one, so they're building on their musicianship and what they can do and what they want to experiment with.
Yeah, they're trying to fill out the sound a lot more, I think. So then we have like a little grenade or bomb lands in the middle of the band when Steve Howe comes into them for the next album, which is the Yes album, where we hear this compositionally building into something. Like there's some fantastic tracks on here. Yours Is No Disgrace, Perpetual Change, Starship Trooper, where we're hearing this ability to move beyond really what is the accepted format of songwriting and everything. So they're actually coming up into something fantastic here, like it's really moving ahead. But you can see how each album is building on each other. The next one then we've got Fragile. Do you want to talk about that?
So we've got Tony Kaye leaves the band and we get Mr. Rick Wakeman, and you can hear the difference straight away when you put this on. And of course we get the amazing roundabout on this album, where you can hear the phasing being used in the studio. Steve Howe's guitar has had a step up again from the last album, and the art as well starts to come, and Roger Dean starts to put his themes into the art here. So we're kind of getting more and more sophisticated as we get up through the albums. Then we come to Close to the Edge, which of course they've kind of hit some sort of a step as to where they're going to head on this one. We've got the sidelong suite of Close to the Edge itself. We've got Siberian Catrue, we've got And You and I, so 3 pieces of music. Even the record album as a format, we've got Roger Dean's wonderful art in the middle here. But even the LP record as a format is even being stretched to its limit on this album, which is a forebearer of what is to come. So next up, I'm going to hand that over to you, Tara, if you don't mind. Okay. Here we go. Tales from Topographic Oceans. Now, my God. First of all, I'd like to say this is probably one of my favourite Roger Dean artworks. It's absolutely amazing. Really is. And this, you feel like you're ascending into heaven, which is probably what John Anderson wanted when he wrote it. Poor Alan White had to come in when they recorded this album and play with them for the first time, and he absolutely nailed it, which was another thing kind of showing what was to come with them. And this was like the high point of their experimentation, and the fact that they even did it is just really amazing and brave. I'd say it was a bit of a kind of, oh God, should we or should we not, but they just went for it. And like I said, absolute high point. And they were the best example for this point. Yeah. So what we can see there is a progression, and what I'm blown away with, Tara, is the amount of time that took place in. Yeah. 4 years. 4 years. First album 1969, Topographic Oceans 1973. I mean, my God. Genius. But there's an example of progression. And there are other bands that we could have picked out and showed you similar journeys, but Yes is very clearly defined, and it's very easy to look at from that point of view. Okay, so that's our number 8. That's our example of a band that progresses, which is one of the key tenets of progressive rock. Okay, lyrically they should seek to go beyond simple romantic relationships and take in philosophical and metaphysical themes. Okay, so
I'm going to go on this one with, take it out of its plastic sheath. Oh, The Great Nursery Crime. Okay, so what we have on this album is Genesis doing a kind of, how can I put it? It's almost like a kind of psychoanalysis of certain kind of English preoccupations. You know, the darkness behind the door, the dark side to fairy tales and things like this. Some of the lyrical content, then we've the Fountain of Salmacis, where we're looking at Greek mythology and legend. Return of the Giant Hogweed is like a frightening story to tell children. And of course the musical box as well. So the themes in this are not kind of I love you, let's get together and things like this. It is something deeper and darker. So Nursery Crime.
And for my number 9, I chose Hawkwind, which a lot of people actually told me from our last video that they would include in their second 6, which is great to see. So I picked out Quark, Strangeness and Charm because of the crazy space, futuristic themes. Where do I start with Hawkwind? I mean, Jesus, they've used all sorts of themes in their music. It's the first time I've heard like performative spoken word properly in music. God, Bob Calvert, I think, is a total genius, or was a total genius, rest in peace. I think Dave Brock is some man for keeping it going all these years. And God, I'd love to meet him one day and just say, my God, you're amazing. But yeah, this is Battersea Power Station, where we got to go and visit recently and get a picture with the what was it called? The synchroscope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to insert a picture, Tara?
I will insert a picture. When I heard it first time, Spirit of the Age, when it came in with that mad sound, I looked at him and I was just like, what's this? And I've been listening to it since, and I just can't get enough of it, to be honest. Even their instrumental stuff is very futuristic, space themed, and they have a lot of lyrics in there that are very kind of thought provoking. And yeah, like he said, it's not, oh, I love you, let's get together. It's absolutely the opposite of that. So yeah, Hawkwind.
Okay, so those are our 9 musical virtues of Prog. I'll just read them out again just to finish off the video. So number 1, it must have artistic intent. It must be intended to be a piece of art from its inception, and that includes the cover as well as the music. It must use the LP record as its medium. It must seek to create something new and be a progression from existing music. It must avoid standardized song formats of verses and chorus. It must bring in influences beyond simple blues formats, stretching into jazz, European, classical and folk traditions. It must seek to use high levels of musicianship. It can employ innovation in the use of instruments and studio techniques. The band of musicians must use each album as a building block as they progress to greater levels of musical and lyrical expression on each album. And lyrically, they should seek to go beyond simple romantic relationship lyrics and take in philosophical and metaphysical themes. I think you can see from there that prog rock is a spectral term.
Yeah.
That there isn't just one. If we were to pick one thing that if every piece of music that we looked at as prog had to tick all those 9 boxes, probably the only album we'd listen to is Tales from Topographic Oceans, because it does.
Yeah.
Okay, but very few of the other albums we've shown tick all the boxes. Okay, so what we'd like you to do is think about it.
I'll write all 9 in the description of the video so you can have a look yourself and think about it. And of course, we'd love for you to let us know in the comments what you think and who you think fits in here. We had a comment recently, someone asking us why we aren't including any modern bands in it. We'll get there. We're just starting out, okay? We're getting there. So that's all to come, so don't worry. Yeah, so thank you very much for watching again. Make sure you subscribe and hit the like button for us because it helps out hugely. And we'll see you in the next one.
See you all again in the next video. Okay, this was a long one. Hopefully it won't be that long. Okay, all the best. Bye-bye. Thanks. Bye.